and someone we're going to hear from next, the Poland boys soccer coach, Brian Garcar, joining us on ysnlive.com. Brian, we know you so well from all the Poland athletics, but we get to talk to you for the first time on Running Point. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And when we talk Poland boys soccer, you guys have been so successful the last couple of years. Give us a little bit of scope of what's gone into that and what you guys are bringing back this year to sustain that success.
Sure. It always starts with our players. They put all of the work in the off season to get themselves better individually. And they give us a great group to start the season in August every single year, and we just try to pick it up and put all the pieces together. This past year we graduated 11 players, and 11 key players to our success for what we had last year and the year before. So there's going to be a few growing pains at different points, but we bring a lot of talent back. Our JV group last year was undefeated, so those guys should be able to step right in and contribute right at the varsity level very quickly. And we do bring 9 lettermen back and 5 or 6 starters. So, we have high expectations for this group, and we're just going to grow as a group every single day, every single week, every single game.
That's such a unique set of circumstances to graduate so many, but still return so much experience. I'm sure there's still going to be some new leaders that you're going to lean on this year. Who are some of the new leadership roles, or maybe advanced leadership roles, taking that next step as a leader that you're going to lean on this season?
Sure. I'll start with Noah Huda. Noah Huda was a sophomore last year, and he was an all-state player in Division II. He's just a really special player, and not only is he a great player, but he's a great leader. For as good as he is on the field, he works just that hard at practice every single day, leading by example and communicating with our players. We have 3 going to be 4-year lettermen, Joe Iberis, Wyatt Bobby, and Tyler Antill. They've been around for 4 years in different roles over the last couple of years, and this year they'll be kind of asked to take on a little bit more leadership role, just by their actions on the field, at practice, just making sure guys are doing what they're supposed to do. But we play about 16, 17, 18 guys every single year. So although we graduate 11, we always feel like we're never having to go through a full rebuild, just because we're getting 7, 8, 9 underclassmen some extra minutes every single game, every single year, so they could just take that next step. So even those guys who maybe I didn't mention are going to be responsible to bring that leadership for that next group of underclassmen that we're going to bring into the fold this year.
All the coaches we've talked to so far have just talked about how good it is to be back to a normal summer for their soccer program. Talk a little bit from your perspective from the Poland program, what it's been like to have a normal summer back and to be able to do all the things that you would like to do to prepare for the season.
Yeah, last year was difficult. No real off season, no preseason. We relied on those 11 seniors to really get us through those first couple of weeks, to stay organized, worked hard every single day so that we could simulate as much as possible in practice what we would see during the season. This year obviously was different, and not only did we have our off season and preseason back, but the OHSAA did lift the 10-day restriction, so we were able to space out a little bit more what we wanted to do. Normally, when we have those 10-day restrictions, we try to keep them more in July, just so it leads into the season, into August. We were able to spread those practices out through June and then July, so we weren't trying to overwhelm our players, trying to get them back into the fold, knock off some of the rust, but also be able to attend some different tournaments and really try to put our team against some of the best teams in Northeast Ohio to get them ready for August.
What's it been like for the sophomore class that hasn't been exposed to a varsity level summer to kind of be almost freshmen again this summer and be exposed to a summer schedule that's back to normal? So I imagine in that sense, you almost have 2 freshman classes in your freshmen and your sophomores, getting them up to speed for what the summer is asked of them.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We were talking at a parent meeting a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, about how we were assuming that our sophomores, juniors, and seniors kind of knew the expectations going in, but our sophomore group, like you just said, is really a freshman group at this point. And luckily last year we had a great leadership group. Those 11 seniors really held our team together, really pushed us through, got those freshmen last year caught up to speed. So our sophomores have an idea of the expectations of our program. But maybe some of those little details that we didn't have an opportunity last year to really talk about and walk through, they're now experiencing that now. So it goes back to our senior group now and our junior group who have been through a full off season and preseason for our program to really try to get those kids caught up to speed so our program is as successful as it can be.
In a sport like soccer, I imagine conditioning is so important. Talk about the conditioning program that you put your team through and some of the things that you guys do to help, keep the legs under you through a full soccer season.
We put a lot of it on our players to get their bodies into a position where they know they can be successful. I'm not a big proponent of conditioning during practice, so we do put that responsibility on our players, but we do run our practices where conditioning is part of most of the drills and activities that we do. We ask our players to go as hard as possible for an 8-10 minute spurt so that they're using, not only are they getting something out of the actual drill itself soccer wise, but they're using that to build up their conditioning. A couple of years ago, we made the decision to start to play a little bit differently as a group. I mentioned before, we play like 16, 17, 18 guys, and that helps us really save legs throughout the season. It is a long stretch, playing 16 games, sometimes playing 3 games a week. It's a long stretch going throughout these couple months, and being able to save a few minutes here and there for all of our players, even some of our starters, they get a little bit of a break every single game. So by the end of the season, they're a little bit fresher than some of the teams we go against, and they're also fresher towards the end of the game. So we're building conditioning within our practices, but we're also trying to save our bodies a little bit where possible throughout the season, just to make sure that we're as fresh as can be come tournament time.
Just a follow-up to that, putting the conditioning on the players themselves and saying you're accountable for that. Do you think that makes your players a little bit more understanding when they are asked to be accountable for other things and the accountability factor of your program? Do you think that raises the bar to how accountable your kids can be when you're saying you're accountable for your own conditioning?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I think we're at a point now in our program where the kids know the expectations. We expect to be successful every single year. We want to be competitive in every single game that we play. And in order to reach that level, we need to put our time into the drills that need to improve our soccer abilities so they can condition, lift, whatever they need to do to keep their bodies in peak performance throughout the season. They need to do what's best for them. Like a student in school, in a classroom, every player is different. Some guys can show up to a game and can play the entire 80-minute game and have done very little conditioning. And some guys need to really put that work in to make sure their body's where they need to be. So we're again putting that accountability on the players, and our players have stepped up to it. We've done that the last couple of years. They've taken on that responsibility, and I think the results show themselves.
The soccer coaches we've had on so far have just told us about developing the youth programs and how important that is to a high school program, considering that most schools don't have a junior high school affiliated program in itself. What does POLASAND do to kind of develop the youth and get them as developed as possible before they get to you as freshmen?
We're fortunate that we have one of the better travel programs in the area. So a lot of our players, they'll play youth or rec when they're younger. And then when they become U10, U12 players, so when they start to enter those middle school grades, they join our travel teams. And those travel teams are competitive, and they travel around the area and play other travel teams in this area. So we've been fortunate since I've taken over to have some of the better travel teams, which then helps our ability as high school coaches, because those kids have now played against some of the best competition in the area. We try to develop a relationship with those younger kids just to, so we start to meet them, introduce ourselves, work with them. We do a youth camp in the summer, again, to try to work with them and get them excited about what POLASAND high school soccer is about.
And I imagine the success of the varsity level has to help with getting the youth excited to be a part of it, because it's a lot easier to get excited about a team that's going out there and winning than it is to try to gear up for a team that's struggling. So I'm sure that you see a lot of excitement from the youth just because of the success of the varsity program.
You're exactly right. And, when you're winning games, you see more people in the stands. And, last year we were undefeated throughout the regular season. And it was a little bit unfortunate because of COVID, because I think we would have seen a lot more of those younger players trying to follow the team, as we worked our way throughout the season. But every single year we see kids in the stands, guys that we have at our youth camp. We have our youth camp in June. Usually we see those guys coming back in August, September, and October, getting excited in the stands, really cheering for our guys. And we try to have our older guys, our varsity players, develop relationships with the younger players as well. So, when they're seeing each other just around the city, in stores, maybe even just going and attending those younger players' games, we're developing that relationship that's not just 9 through 12, but maybe 7 through 12 or even younger.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on I want to talk about that undefeated season last year, and such a peculiar year where so many things were different. What was it like going through that regular season and having the undefeated regular season, as you said, and being able to have that success? That must have been such a proud moment as a coach to see your kids push through a lot of adversity that COVID kind of brought, and be able to finish the regular season undefeated.
You said that right. I mean, there was a lot of adversity, and we were fortunate to be able to take it game by game. We were able to get our entire full 16 game season in, which not every team could say they were able to do that. But again, I'll go back to those 11 seniors. They really held things together for us. And also our underclassmen. They stepped up to the responsibility of what was being asked of them. And we knew as we were winning more games, the target becomes bigger. So being able to step up every single game and do what's necessary, not always perfect. I mean, we did not play perfectly towards the end of the season, but we did enough to make sure that we were getting the results that we needed. And that helped us carry into the tournament. And we thought we had a pretty good tournament run, and we just got caught a little bit short in that district final game.
Yeah, and now that target gets even bigger, I imagine, coming into this year, and you're going to start with that big target day one. What's that mentality going to be like, knowing that everyone that played you on your schedule is going to be gunning for you because you were the team that went undefeated last year?
We've been on both sides of that. We've been, we've been the team chasing one of the best teams in the area, and we've also now we're in that situation where we're being chased by other teams. And I think it's a discussion we need to have as a group. We haven't really had that with our varsity kids yet because we're still trying to figure some things out. But they need to know they got to bring their A game every single day. Starting on Saturday, we have our first scrimmage against Chagrin. And we need to set the tone starting on Saturday that this is how things need to be played. We need to play for a full 80 minutes. We can't spot teams any goals, and we have to be ready to show up every single minute of every single game. We've tried to build our schedule in a way where it's going to get us ready for the tournament, but then that also means that you're going to have to play 16 games of 80 minutes in order to be successful.
Poland is a bigger school, but still plenty of multi-sport athletes in your program. What's it like working with the other coaches in the athletic department and making that move seamless with sharing athletes and never having conflicts of, this kid's playing soccer, but I want him to play, basketball in the October. What's it like working with the athletic department and having that seamless coaches relationship with the athletes that do play multiple sports?
Communication's vital, and working with our athletic director, Brian Banfield, has been, he always takes that communication very seriously, just trying to make sure that we're not overwhelming the kids. I mean, we all want our kids to be at everything, but we also don't want to drain them before any season actually starts. So we try to compromise as much as we can. We talk to each other. I talk to the basketball coach, the football coach, and, baseball during the spring, just to make sure that we are we know where our players are at. We're not overwhelming them too much, but we're still getting out of them what we can to make sure that all of our programs in the athletic department are successful.
Talk about your growth as a coach over the years and some of the things that you've learned and been able to absorb, not just as a soccer coach, but you've been able to work with Nick Blanche and the girls program. And what are some of the things that you've been able to really grow in the last several years of being the varsity coach?
When I first took over, I was really young when I took over. And I thought you had to put countless hours into everything, every little dimension of the game. And we were successful early on, but it was draining for our players and for myself. And I think as I took over more and more and looked into the details of what our program is, I realized sometimes that less is more. We're starting to practice now 90 minutes instead of 2 straight hours or 2.5 hours. We decided instead of conditioning during practices, which is something that we would have done when I first took over, let's just build it within our practices. Let's put as many skills as possible together within our drill, so we're maximizing the time that we're there. You mentioned Nick Blanche, and Nick's a good friend of mine, and I've had the pleasure of working with him for the last couple of years. And he the organization that he shows, I try to use in my program too. Communication with the players is vital. So, all those little details add up when it comes to being successful programs. And I try to emulate all of those different great coaches in our area and try to do little bits and pieces to try to fit our program.
The head coaches get the light shined on them, they get the interviews, but I know they're nothing without the assistants that work with them. Talk about your whole coaching staff, whether it be the JVs, the people that work with the youth, and all your support system and all the coaches that work with you that kind of make this program possible. Shine a light on some of them.
So I'm going to start with Bill Storkel. Bill Storkel's been with me ever since the beginning when I took over. So this is our 10th year together. He's our JV head coach. He's my varsity assistant. We talk almost probably every day, every other day now that the season actually has started. We talk a lot more too, just to make sure that our entire program is where it needs to be, making sure we're monitoring our players, making sure that if somebody is not feeling well or if they're injured, we're taking care of things. He's been my right-hand man since the beginning, and I owe a lot to him to get through these 10 years. Zach Nemeth, we brought on board 2 years ago. Zach was a player for me. Graduated 2 years ago. He's a goalie-specific coach, and we never really had one of those until he came on board. When Zach played, he was one of the best players in the area, one of the best goalies in the area. So being able to bring him on board to actually work with our goalies. So not only did we have one of the best goalies in the area a couple of years ago, we think we have probably the best goalie coach in the area right now working with our goalies. He puts in countless hours trying to make sure that our guys are where they need to be, our goalies are where they need to be, and he also works with some of the younger goalies too in the middle school grades, so that when they come up to the high school, they can jump right in and not have any faults there. I mean, our travel coaches also, I can't thank them enough. There's so many of them over the years that have all had a small piece in the success that we have had, and then just support system. My family has been amazing throughout these 10 years. Mr. Banfield and the Poland administration have been amazing, every step of the way, especially as a young coach, helping me get through those first couple of years, and now just the support that they've shown over these last couple of years when we've had a lot of success.
You talk about your goalie coach, and the more we talk to soccer coaches, the more I kind of understand that not anyone can just go back there and be a goalie. It takes a kind of special personality, a special mindset. What kind of things kind of go into coaching up a goalie, and what kind of personality does it take to kind of be back there and be a goalkeeper?
It is a different position. It's unique compared to all the other ones. All the other 10 positions on the field are involved in the game in some way, pretty much for the full 80 minutes. They might not be always passing the ball the entire time, but the movements they have to show during the game are vital to the success of a program. We've been in games where the goalkeeper has had to make one save at one specific moment, and that's made the difference in our game. So to be a goalkeeper, you have to be incredibly focused. You have to be engaged throughout the entire game, even when you're not really part of the game for stretches. And it's just a unique ability to be able to play with your feet, but also have the coordination with your hands and your upper body to make saves. And again, like I said, you might make one save. It might be one specific play that you're involved in that makes or breaks if a team wins. Soccer is kind of a funny sport like that, where you can dominate an entire game, but the opposing team gets one goal snuck in and they end up winning a game. So it's not like any other sport. So the goalie is a vital piece to our success.
Let's talk about your soccer journey and kind of what gave you the passion for this sport and what makes you keep coming back.
I started when I was young. I think like 4 or 5 years old when I played. My parents and grandparents, put me out there, and I just loved the game ever since. I went to Poland, played through the Poland travel system, played at Poland High School, graduated in 2008, and I really wanted to just get involved in coaching right after that. I was fortunate enough to be offered a position on the Poland staff. that same year, and a couple years later took over the entire program as a whole. Soccer's a wonderful game where it's so important about the preparation that you do for your team's success. Basketball, football, other sports like that, the coach has an impact during the game. You can call plays to try to impact or sway how the game's end result's going to look. Soccer, you really don't have that control. You talk to your players and you hope they're ready to go when the game starts. You got 10 minutes at a halftime to make any adjustments, but the rest is on them. So all that work ahead of time, all that preparation that you put in is the most important piece. And then you hope you did enough just to make sure that your guys are ready to go in those games, and they just take it from there.
I love that you bring up the coaches don't really have much control during a game. Put into words what the mindset is of you on the sidelines when you're out there, and really, like you said, you're just hoping that the players are prepared and you're hoping that they execute their game plan. What's that kind of like being a part of that? What's the mindset like as a coach during a game?
A lot of patience. So you don't get a timeout. We don't get to talk to our guys. I mean, unless we sub them out and talk to them specifically, we have to wait to talk to the entire group until a halftime or even after the game. And sometimes at that point it's too late. First halves, we're always trying to evaluate where we're at, trying to reflect on maybe what the game plan was, the scouting report. Did we say something correctly? Is the team doing something different that maybe we're not adjusting to very well as a group that we would then have to make adjustments at halftime? But there's a lot of trust now. Putting it on your players and relying on those leaders to make those in-game adjustments is a huge part to soccer. And all that preparation, all that time spent at practice, you have to just trust and have the confidence that you put the kids in the right position, and they're going to be able to take it and get the results that you need.
If you had to put kind of the style of Poland soccer into words, what kind of style do you guys play? What kind of game plans do you like to execute?
We like to, so we call it pressing. So we, like I said before, we play probably 16, 17, 18 guys, and we try to get them in and out in different shifts, maybe every 8, 10, 12 minutes or so. So we try to put as much pressure as possible on the opposing team. We call it a 3-second rule. So anytime that we lose possession of the ball, we try to win the ball back within 3 seconds. We feel like that's the best opportunity before the team has had a chance to really develop their possession for us to win the ball back. We try to create by pressing, we try to create as many extra opportunities on the offensive end as possible. We try to create shots, and even if they're not great opportunities, we feel like the abundance of shots that we can have in a game will lead to more goals actually being scored. The counter to all of that is when you press, and if you don't do it the right way, you're putting more pressure on your defense and your goalkeepers. So we try to make sure that they're as prepared as possible to withstand any transition that the opposing team could have if we're not doing a great job of pressing with our offensive players. And we've tried for the last couple of years just to try to wear teams down by playing 17, 18 guys. We feel like we're a little bit fresher towards the end of games, and especially towards the end of seasons, than the opposing team might be. And we tell our guys to have patience. If we don't get the goal that we need early in the game, if we're doing what we're supposed to do towards the end of games, we'll wear them down enough that we should be able to squeak one in and get the result that we need.
Now, you say your first scrimmage is Saturday, so what goes into your checklist of the first scrimmage? What kind of things do you want to see? What are some of the team goals to accomplish in that first scrimmage and the first time you really get your guys out there in a competitive atmosphere?
I think organization and structure is the biggest thing right now. I know we're not going to play perfectly the first scrimmage, nor do I really want us to play perfectly. I'd rather us play perfect towards the beginning of October going into tournaments. But overall structure of what we're trying to do, I just talked about pressing. We do want to see those things being accomplished in the scrimmages. We talk about some of the details of set pieces and corners. We don't have a lot of that in yet. So we'll be very basic with those things, but we'd like to see execution on those ends. And a big piece at this point in the year is communication. So we know we're not going to play perfectly, but if we're communicating together, those are things that we can do right now as perfectly as possible that will carry over into the season, into September, into October, and then into the tournament. So we're looking for a lot of the basic things in these first scrimmages. Obviously, we'd like to have a great result against Chagrin, who is a great program and a great team. And we just want to see where we're at, make the adjustments going into the next scrimmage, and then that'll carry us into the first game.
Let's talk a little bit about your schedule and some of the games that maybe fans should circle as must-see opportunities for the teams that you're playing.
So we really try to beef up our out-of-conference schedule. So this year we have CVCA, Cuyahoga Valley Christian Academy. We're going up there on the first game of the season on August 24th. West Geauga on that Thursday, who we actually played in the tournament last year and had a good game against them. So we expect that to be a good game. That's our first home game. We also have Boardman and Austintown Fitch, two Division I, very strong programs in the area who we know are going to be big, strong, athletic, and skilled. So we're going to have to be prepared for those. And then the rest of the games are our conference schedule. And our conference is unique because over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, there's really been a kind of a new team to lead the conference, every year or every other year. Kind of started with Lakeview 5 or 6 years ago where they had really, really great teams. And then it went to Hubbard and then South Range. And then we were fortunate last year. So we know there's good teams in our conference. We play these teams twice a year. So even if we happen to get a win on the first game against those teams, we know they're going to make adjustments and be ready for us the second time. So it's a tough schedule going through all 16 games, but we got a lot of great teams and great games throughout the season that we have to be ready for.
And let's talk about what it's like playing in this conference. I mean, you went down the programs. It's just you beef up your out-of-conference schedule, but your conference schedule might be the toughest conference schedule in the area. I mean, you got teams that made deep tournament runs last year in South Range and Hubbard, and what Lakeview's program's all about. What's it like going through that gauntlet, and how much does it really prepare you for the tournament time?
It's difficult at the time. You always kind of wish there was a day off somewhere where we have, a game where you can just kind of take it easy. But that's not possible in our conference. And that really does help us come tournament time, because tournament time, it's one and done. You have to show up to every single game and you have to be ready to play. And if you're not, you're done. The season's over. So our conference helps prepare us for that, because we know every single game we have to show up. And, those teams know us really well. They've scouted us really well. Our kids, their kids and our kids know each other playing through club or different sports. So there's a little bit extra rivalry in those games, and our kids get up for that. And winning the conference last year, I think, I hope our guys are ready to hopefully defend that conference title, but I know it won't be easy going throughout this season.
All that being said, I mean, I got to imagine a conference championship means a little bit more to you. I mean, if you win it, you earned it, right? I mean,
that's exactly right. And last year was the first time since I had taken over that we had won a conference championship. So we've had a lot of really, really great teams who have won districts and sectional titles, but that was the first year we've actually won the conference. So I think that speaks to how good the conference has been. It started as the AAC and then it's moved to the NE8, but it's been mostly the same teams. How good the conference has been over the years, where there's a lot of really good teams that are at the top, but only one program can actually win the conference. So it was really a lot of fun last year, especially in a COVID year, to be able to take that and that be the first conference championship. And we hope we can duplicate that this year.
Last question before we let you go. If you had to pick a checklist of team goals this year, what are some of the team goals that you guys have already set for yourselves?
I think conference is one of them. We want to make sure that we're doing everything in our power to be competitive in every single game, give ourselves a chance to win every conference game, and hopefully be in the running to win a conference championship. We kind of had a heartbreaker last year in the district final game against Chagrin. We lost in double overtime. So I think our goal is to get back to that point and hopefully get the result that we need. And just every single game, showing up, being competitive, being ready to play, being prepared. I think as a coach, that's my goal. But then as a group of players, I think that should be their goal as well. Making sure we're ready to go for every game, engaged in every game, and just doing everything in our power to get every result that we need.
All right, Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to hear from you. We definitely know that Poland boys soccer is going to be one of the programs to watch this year. We can't wait to continue our coverage of them, and we'll hope to talk to you again real soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your coverage.